This is Dr. T, and welcome to the live stream. So today, nothing really as far as the questions list goes for the queue. Actually, a little bit surprised since one of my classes does have a test coming up. But otherwise, just kind of hanging out here and looking at chat, seeing if there's any questions in chat. If not, we should be good to go. Anyways, so things going on, interesting things to talk about. Changing things up a little bit. So I've got, on r/chemistry, on, a couple other places where faculty chat. And one of the interesting problems, especially for new faculty, and I definitely went through this, is that you learn about all kinds of cool ways of teaching. There's, of course, the classic, stand in front of the PowerPoint, click through that. That, of course, has the downside of lecture is generally not the best way of instructing. It definitely is sometimes the best option for what you're teaching. And, I definitely do lecture. Several of my students, sat through one today. And by the way, once again, apologies to the folks in the physical science class who are attending WebEx. I totally forgot to hit the start button. I was like, it was showing me the camera. It was the preview button, and I forgot to hit the start button. So sorry about that. But yeah, in general, lecturing is not the most effective way of educating. You generally don't retain as much information. Instead, what you want to be doing is active learning, which is buzzword city. Essentially what you're doing is you're trying to think more about the topic, and the more you think about the topic, the more you're going to learn it. So for my students, if you're in my survey of chemistry class, in your lab book, there's a bunch of activities that we're not doing this year because we can't work in groups because COVID. But normally we'd be doing these activities in groups, and the idea is you're discovering the content, and we'd be doing those before I would lecture on the content. So the lecturing would actually occur kind of towards the end. So my usual pattern is active learning, then lecture, and then kind of intermixed with the lecture, but kind of lecture first-ish, kind of a Q&A. So grab the clickers, grab whiteboards, that kind of stuff. And then that way you're engaging with it during the, if you're a student of mine, you're engaging through the material with the active learning one. And hopefully, in theory, that should really help you learn what's going on. And that's going to be things like, okay, look at this model. What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going here? You see that pattern you just saw? This is what we call that pattern. So it might be something like, okay, so you notice how you just added up all of those atomic weights? We call that sum of atomic weights, the formula weight or the molar mass or the molecular weight, because of course we call it several different things depending on exactly which ones you added up. But that's a bit of an aside. So the goal here is to kind of go through the active learning process. Now, this is fairly new. If you are a new faculty member, your textbook, one of the reasons those things are so stupidly expensive and we still use them is that they come with pre-prepared PowerPoints. I have made PowerPoints for some of my courses, and literally we are talking 3 hours to make a 30-minute long PowerPoint. Making those guys from, not even from scratch. And that was starting out with ones that came from the book. It easily can be that long or longer if you're going from scratch, if you're fishing pictures through the web, if you're actually being responsible and pulling up, open source images or ones you have copyrights for. Heaven help you if you have to make your own images. Oh, this gets really, really slow. So, instructors have the book has PowerPoints, boom, you got PowerPoints. Now for me, I generally, for most classes, except for biochemistry, I'm not a huge PowerPoint fan. I really find the chalkboard works better. Biochemistry, there's enough weird, complicated stuff that it actually gets to be a pain for drawing, and I'm not that good of an artist. But when it comes to, you get the book comes with the PowerPoints, and thus boom, you can go through it. But if you want to go through active learning, you're a little bit of an awkward spot, especially if you're new faculty. There are books that have those activities in them, but they're not your usual textbook. And so if you have control over the books being used in a course, you just have that become one of the textbooks. Maybe if you're nice to the students, try and cheapen up one of the other textbooks that isn't really worth it, kind of thing. Not to mention lately, the open source textbooks are starting to kick it out of the ballpark. The newest version of the OpenStax chemistry is actually halfway decent. It's actually definitely usable. And there's an open source biochemistry book. There's a couple open source books. So yeah, that can save you some money, and then you can redirect that in towards some active learning activities. However, if you don't have control over what books you use, and here is the book you will be using, our committee of 3 people who have tenure and have been at the job for the last 57 years have decided this is what it is. Good luck. You have to make your own. And so in this text, the ones that I use, I have for the most part made for myself. There's one of them that I'm actually using. It was done with Creative Commons by a guy by the name of Wolf out of Pennsylvania. That's actually usually one of the first ones I do, since I'm not allowed to put it in the lab book because of the way it's copyrighted. But it's also just happens to fit in right at the beginning, so it works perfectly. Not everyone has their books yet. I just do this one. It's great. So what I'm kind of doing is taking a leaning from Wolf, and I've created a website, officehours.drT.com, and I have put a lot of my activities. I'm starting to put, I should say, they're not up yet. I only have like 4 of them. A lot of the activities up there, so that I can share that easily with newer faculty or faculty who would like to get into the whole active learning approach, which I've definitely really liked. It's really been helpful, but you need the resources. Otherwise, you're kind of up a creek. So that way, I'm going to stick those a Creative Commons, attribute license. So, give me credit, but otherwise, hey, use this for whatever you want. Sorry, motorcycle. Anyways, and thus this way, can be shared fairly easily. Hopefully faculty get to use that. It's just out on the web kind of thing. And, maybe it'll be of some use. And so when I'm sitting on r/chemistry, it's like, anyone have, need help with, or I should say, how'd the question go? It was something like, anyone got ideas for nomenclature? Like, hey, I got an idea for nomenclature. Instead of doing the whole, hey, email me with your email and I'll send you the file, that kind of thing. It's like, here's the link. Just go grab it if you like it. Don't if you don't. That kind of thing. So I'm hoping that's useful. If you go there, you'll notice it's like super retro. One that's really easy to code. The hosting service I got was the cheapest one out there. Yeah, this is mine, not the school's kind of thing. And also, I like the retro style. I really like that old WebPoint 1 style, where it literally is text. The graphics are ASCII graphics, which those things are fun. If you've never run into ASCII graphics, those are fun. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of the things going on. This is textbook adoption season, which is always the, which books do I pick? Definitely going open source as much as possible. I've got my foundations of physical science. That, when it comes to textbooks, is an internal frustration because there's 2 textbooks out there. They're both overpriced, and they are both not that great. So it's like, a textbook is useful. A student should probably have a textbook. It does help. There's no open source option. There's no free option. There's only really 2 options. And they're both kind of, ugh. So I'm currently going with the one that the other professor uses, who teaches the life science equivalent to this course. That way, since students usually take both, they hopefully just buy the book once and they don't have to buy it again. Of course, if they're renting, sorry. Yeah, so it's one of those ones. And then trying to figure out, a couple of the other details. It's always one of those interesting, like, okay, this time of year again, what am I doing for next semester kind of stuff, which is always fun. Otherwise, yeah, once again, as I mentioned, I think in some of the announcements, there was no questions in the queue. So nothing too horribly interesting to jump into it. I'm not seeing any questions in the comments. So with that said, probably going to have a short live stream today and have a wonderful week. Enjoy the week. Here down in Georgia, things are getting cooler. The weather's actually nice. I am so looking forward to grabbing open that fire pit. I got little marshmallow roasting, telescoping things. I've got a pile of marshmallows. And I'm going to make some s'mores because those things are going to be tasty. So with all that said, this has been Dr. T. And have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for watching my live stream. Goodbye.